rap sentiment here, a little hip hop sentiment.
Okay.
Today is the anniversary of Notorious B.I.G. Biggie getting killed, and I can always remember the day because Cannabis had the song "Second Round Knockout." Because the greatest rapper of all time died on March 9th. God bless his soul. Rest in peace, kid. It's because of him now. At least I know what beef is. So just wanted to open up the show with that. I know we have a lot of people that enjoy rap music that watch our show. Moose, you are a notable hip hop head. So there we
No,
go.
I do like hip hop. I just can't name an artist, song, albums, anything like that. I give Keith you a ton of credit. Everybody in our chat session. I know I embarrass guys like Jay Cabasa and Baby J on the regular. But I do enjoy listening to hip hop music. I can't tell you who I'm listening to. I'm not trying to insult anybody. It just sometimes it's
Well, listen, but that's fair. And by the way, Tony's on production today. Tony, let's do a lot of Biggie music today. Let's
yes.
we got a request from Baby J, loyal listener, loyal viewer. Let's do a bunch of Biggie music when we can. But that's how I am with rock music, because like I'll enjoy a rock song and then have no idea who's singing it or what group it is. No idea.
I'm a little bit better probably in that. I don't know. I mean,
like,
maybe.
There was some Fleetwood Mac song that I thought was awesome. And I'm like, I don't know who sings it, but I loved it. And then I'm like, oh, that's Fleetwood Mac. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Fleetwood Mac is great. Yeah. I'm maybe a little bit better with that. But
yeah.
I think we can all recognize great talents. And I think whatever inspires you, whatever you love to listen to, that's what you're going to, lean into. Sometimes you remember exactly what the song is. Sometimes you hear a song, you have no idea who it is. You'd like to hear it again, and you still can't find a way until it pops back up on whether you're listening to satellite, terrestrial radio, Apple Music, Spotify, whatever it might be. So that's the way it goes. But I didn't even realize today was the anniversary of the death of Biggie, but
I think it's 26 years, I believe. I think it was
crazy.
March 9th, 1997.
Crazy. Legend.
And I can still remember my junior year of high school walking around with a Discman and bumping his post.
Absolute legend.
Yeah.
No question.
Speaking of legend, speaking of greatness, Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
This does not look good. So I leave AAU basketball practice last night, and Austin gets on the phone as we get in the car, and he's like, Dad, Durant got hurt. I'm like, all right, bad or no? And he goes, well, look at this. And he pulls up the video. I go, ooh. So we watch it a few times, and we see the way the ankle turns. But then if you read further in the article, it said he finishes his warm-up. So you're like, all right, maybe it wasn't that bad. He doesn't play in the game. And now there are reports this morning by some of the local reporters out there. They think Durant's going to miss the rest of the regular season. So it begs this question, Moose. What are the Phoenix Suns if the Suns don't have Durant for the regular season? Let's say this lingers into the postseason a little bit. What are they?
I mean, I don't. Without Kevin Durant, they're not a championship team.
Yeah, middle of the pack Western Conference team.
Yeah, maybe a little bit better than that. I mean, Booker last night dropped in 44 points and played, under 30 minutes. They won that game by daylight. I think they had like a 44-point quarter. I think maybe in the third last night to the Phoenix Suns. So, we know Paul is no longer the same player. They run very, very hot and cold with DeAndre Ayton. They traded a ton of their talent, like Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, to go get Kevin Durant. From the Brooklyn Nets, and we know the impact of Kevin Durant. I mean, when he's healthy, his teams last 4 years, I think, win 67% of the time. And I think when he's not, they win about 53 to 55% of the time. So his impact is without question. We know how great of a player he is. There's never been a conversation where there's been a debate about, well, is Kevin Durant great or is he an immortal? We all know what we're watching. Like, those debates don't happen. You quantify it by how many MVPs, how many championships, some of the stuff on social media. There's a lot that goes into KD, the professional basketball players, and a lot of layers to him and some of the criticism that's been levied his way. But you take him off the court, I mean, it's just freakish. I mean, you feel bad for the ball boy. I mean, it's just, who's got the sweat mop out there that didn't clean up a spot, obviously, and he goes and slips on a wet spot on the floor. The hopped right up, but you watch the replay of it, and you clearly see the ankle, touch the court.
Yeah.
And that's never a good sign. He's never healthy. I mean, that's the other thing with Kevin Durant is now you throw the ankle in. Had a knee earlier this year. Had a knee last year. Had the Achilles. Like Kevin Durant we joke around about Anthony Davis being Mr. Street Clothes, but Kevin Durant has missed a lot of NBA games. No one's denying that he doesn't want to be on the court. This isn't a case where, there's other things that are grabbing his attention or he wants to focus on. This is not Kyrie Irving. This is a case of, well, Kevin Durant is, not exactly aging well as a player and is not staying healthy. Now you want to say, okay, well, guys, I mean, Father Time catches up with everybody, right? When you wake up now, in your 40s, and I know, Keith, you're in peak physical condition, but the point being is you still feel a little bit of the time. You don't feel the same as you did in your 20s, waking up in your 40s, just like you don't feel the same in your 50s, the way you woke up in your 30s. I mean, it just happens, and time catches up with everybody. We try and stop, the impact of age on our bodies and in our lives. But when you're looking at professional athletes, sometimes the wear and tear on their bodies start to wreak havoc later on in their career. Durant is not he's not LeBron James when you look at his build.
He was drafted in 07. He was 19 years old when he was drafted, right?
Yeah, so but you also
16 years.
But you look at his build. He doesn't have a tremendous amount of muscle mass. He's always been thin framed. He was at Texas. He was in Seattle. He was in Oklahoma City. He was in Golden State. He was in Brooklyn. He's now in Phoenix. I mean, there's not a lot that has changed to the Kevin Durant body. Like if you look at LeBron James at 18 and look at LeBron James now, they look like two completely different human beings.
Yeah.
But if you look at Kevin Durant at Texas at 18 and Kevin Durant now you'll see obviously his hair's balding. There's things that'll show you that his age. But if you just look at his general body type, not a lot has significantly changed with Kevin Durant. He looks very, very similar in nature. And I just think now you look at a player that it's great to talk about Kevin Durant in theory, but we also then have to talk about Kevin Durant in reality. It's a freakish injury that happened last night as he was getting ready to make his son's home debut. They had won 3 in a row. They've now won 4 in a row and did it last night without KD. But Keith, now it becomes more about him, whether or not you can count on him to stay healthy. And the other issue is, okay, so say for argument's sake, he's out for the rest of the regular season and you get him for the playoffs. Now you have to call into question, okay, well, if I'm going to bet the Phoenix Suns now and go on that theory, is Kevin Durant physically going to be able to hold up for an entire postseason run? Those are questions that need to be, and conversations that need to be had now, because he always gets hurt.
Yeah, your NBA title odds, you got the Bucks and the Celtics at plus 320. Suns are now 440. Nuggets 7-1. Warriors 15-1. Sixers 16-1. Grizzlies, Clippers 19-1. Mavs 20-1. You don't really have to go much lower than that. That's kind of where we stand as of FanDuel this morning. Can we trust Kevin Durant? Yeah, I don't know. That's it's a legit.
Well, let me ask you this: if I gave you $100 right now, would you and I told you to pick a Western Conference team, and you loved the Phoenix Suns, right? I'm putting a lot of qualifiers on it. But if I ask you that, would you bet the Phoenix Suns today?
I can't. No. Chris Paul has proven to never step up in the big moments in the postseason, right? He's had some doozies. And then if I don't know what Durant is going to be, now here's the thing: it's about the injury issues, because chemistry-wise,
I'll put the 100 in my pocket instead of the Suns.
Yeah, it's not a bad idad. All right, Wally.
Wally, by the way, I have no money. It all goes to my kids.
Yes. Wally knows. That's why Wally's trying to get money from you, because
it's lint and more lint.
Yeah. He goes, "Ooh, I found a dime! Yay! My lucky day! There was a quarter in my pocket."
Right.
And then Jackson walks by and just grabs it from you, or Gregory Ball. No, thanks, Dad. I'm gonna go get some gumballs.
Right, exactly right. I'm gonna go get a gumball. I always love those gumball machines.
Oh, those are fun. That was I know as a bald man, everyone's gonna make fun, but remember being like a kid and your parents taking you, or your dad or whomever taking you to the barber shop,
Yeah.
and that was like the thing is if you were good, they'd give you 75 cents, whatever it was, couple of quarters, and you could put it in the thing in the corner, and you get to pick what kind of like you press the thing, and
Yeah.
some like candy would come out, and you catch in your
Yeah, it
hand,
was great.
and
It was
your
amazing.
dad would get mad at you if you didn't catch it all, and some of it landed on the ground.
Yeah,
No?
yeah, it was. I mean, my kids are pigs, but yes, I don't get mad.
Your kids are like, oh, I'm good. Oh, a little
Yeah,
hair.
right. There's no such thing as a 5-second rule.
Kiss it to God. You're good to
Right.
go.
Gregory found a piece of candy on the floor of the car the other day. He was like, popped it right in his mouth. I was like, dude, that's disgusting. I'm like, dude, that's disgusting.
That's nasty.
Anyway, we were talking
So
about Durant.
money, yeah, chemistry, blah blah blah. So the chemistry is the thing that I'm not worried about the chemistry with the Phoenix Suns, because Kevin Durant is one of those players where it's really simple to put him into onto a roster, because, like, for a lack of a better way, he's an excellent team player and he's a bucket, right? Like, you put them both together. He doesn't need the ball in his hand. He doesn't have to start the offense. He can come off screens. He's a above average defender. Like, all of that stuff works. For, most things I hear, he's a good teammate. Like, people like playing with him. So the chemistry thing's not the issue. It's how long does this ankle sprain linger? And you're right, Moose. Let's say he comes back in the opening round. They win easily. What if he gets banged up again in the second round or in the conference finals? Yeah, I'd be a little leery of betting them. I also want to see what this number goes to. So it's 440 today.
Right. And
after the MRI, he's
going to be out a while.
Let's say he's out the rest of the regular season for a fact.
Yeah.
Does this number move to 6-1? 7-1?
Right. And it probably, 8-1. I mean, who exactly with unless you have an idea of, okay, the MR comes back, we're going to hold him out. We know he's going to be back round one of the playoffs. Maybe the line doesn't move significantly that much like we're talking about. But let's see exactly what that report is. Yeah, I love KD, the player. Love the move that the Phoenix Suns made. Love the fact that they're going for it. Love the fact that they have a young, aggressive owner that's worth billions upon billions of dollars. All that fantastic. I don't think if you're a Suns fan, you look at Kevin Durant, just as you saw in Brooklyn, just as you saw at the end with Golden State, is you have concerns now about KD being able to hold up physically. Similar nature to the conversation we had about LeBron James. Time catches up with everybody, right?
Yeah.
And LeBron now out with that tendon injury and has been out a while. The Lakers are trying to get themselves into that, not just playing tournament, but playing themselves into the top 6 in the Western Conference before they get LeBron James back. But we're still 2 weeks away from him being looked at once again after suffering that foot injury. When you look at Kevin Durant, unbelievable basketball player, as good of a scorer. Like, I remember sitting down Super Bowl week before the Colts-Bears game, watching him play for the Texas Longhorns. And I think he had a game where he dropped in 48 points. Like, he's a remarkable NBA player. He's one of the great scorers that we've all ever laid two eyes on. All that is true. Now, at this stage of his career, though, I think you realistically have to look at it and say the body's not holding up. For whatever reason, it's just not. And I can't count on them staying healthy. Therefore, I agree with you. I would never bet the Suns right now. I don't care if the number moves to 7-1 or 8-1 or 9-1 or how enticing they make it right now. I think the team to look at in the Western Conference is Denver. I mean, as you've seen the debates rage on and nonsense being spewed about Jokic and stuff, and him being the MVP of the league, which he's going to do it for a third consecutive year, which is historic. We know, joining, Wilt, Russell, and Larry Bird and becoming the fourth player ever to do it. It's a regular season award. I think Barkley said it best the other day when he was on a Denver radio station. It doesn't necessarily mean you're the best player in the league. It means you're having the best regular season. And Nikola Jokic for the Denver Nuggets is having the best regular season. With that, Denver, for a team that's been right there at the top out west all season long. I mean, you're getting 7-1 right now, Keith, on the Denver Nuggets to win an NBA title. I kind of like that. I mean, I really do. You've seen some issues with Boston as of late. Milwaukee, of course, who doesn't love Giannis? And when their big three are healthy, and Middleton and obviously Holiday, the Milwaukee Bucks can win an NBA title. But if you're looking at it from an odds perspective, I said 3 teams, a while back, 3 weeks ago out west that I targeted. The 3 were the Clippers, who I don't think anybody can trust. The Suns, Durant is now hurt, and we'll find out the significance of that injury. And the other team being Denver. I think the Nuggets at 7-1 represent pretty good value because if you make the argument that the Western Conference is so wide open, there's not this super team, then why not go with the team that's been the most consistent and has the best player in the regular season?
Yeah, and so the Nuggets are 7th in points per game, and they are 12th in points per game allowed. They've got the 3rd best points per game differential. The only teams better than them are the Cavaliers and the Celtics, and they're sandwiched then by the Bucks and the Sixers. So of the top 5 teams in point differential,
3 are
the
in the
Nuggets
East.
are the 3rd, and 4 are in the East.
4 in the East, right?
Yeah.
Cavs, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah. And then you go to the Grizzlies. And listen, when you think about the Grizzlies, if this Ja Morant stuff wasn't going on right now, they'd be live. You'd be talking about them as this like plucky young team. They're brash. They've got a future superstar. They've got scorers. They've got defense. They've got all this kind of stuff. But we have no idea what's going on with Ja Morant. I mean, the team just added another 4 games. Not the NBA, the team.
Yes.
Like they know whatever issues there are for Morant that were happening off the court. Like they know about them. And clearly they know they need to handle this even more than just the NBA needs to handle this.
Yeah. I mean, number one, every league has got a security team, whether you like it or not. Every league is doing their due diligence. Every team is doing their due diligence. They know what players are doing away from the basketball court. If you don't think they are, there's too much money being invested. Like if you think you're getting or signing a, $250 million contract and an NBA team is not going to make sure that, I'm not telling you that they're tracking you on a day in, day out basis or they have bugs in your house. They just, they have former, federal agents and law. I mean, it just is what it is. You see in the NFL, you see in the NBA, you see in the NHL, you see in the National Football League. I mean, it just comes along with the territory to where, when Carmelo Anthony the other day when the John Morant stuff came out, said he had one of the greatest commissioners ever, God rest his soul, David Stern, had a conversation with Carmelo Anthony at the time, who was having some issues away from the basketball court. And, paraphrasing here, David Stern basically said, listen, I know who you're hanging out with. I know what you're doing away from the court. And he said for Carmelo, he said, that was kind of an eye opener, about, where I'm working and what I'm doing. And he obviously, Carmelo, made some better decisions moving forward. And, Carmelo Anthony learned from some of the mistakes early on in his NBA career. And I'm not telling you that Ja Morant's the worst person in the world. I do think he's not hanging out with the right people when he's not making right decisions right now. And maybe this is the moment, Keith, where he's an unbelievable talent. You give him a ton of credit. He's unbelievable to watch on the court. He's one of the guys that I think if you're looking, I always like to have this conversation when you're thinking about, because we all like going to games. But the ultimate conversation is, who would you pay money to go watch? Ja Morant's one of the players that you'd clearly go pay money to watch.
Yeah. He'd be on the list, yes.
Yeah, he'd be on the list in the NBA because he does stuff that not many, if any, in the NBA can do for a guy his size. He's a remarkable player. He's just got to make better decisions moving forward. And hopefully, this kind of time away from the team, he's able to figure out exactly what he needs to do moving forward.
Another guy you'd probably pay your money to watch is Luka Doncic. And now he goes out with an injury yesterday, and Mavericks lose to the Pelicans. And Luka says it's not good afterwards. There's some sort of strain in his, quad area, his thigh. They're going to have an MRI today. That's another one too. And I think you and I were talking about this a couple of days ago, or maybe I was talking about this at home with one of my sons. I don't remember. But he just always runs around like he looks like he's hurt, right? Everything looks painful for
Yes. He's an
Luka.
actor.
Yes.
He's a
right?
tremendous actor.
And that's where
as the Academy Awards are Sunday night. He's a tremendous actor.
Former NBA player Lauren Woods. I was just reading an article on The Athletic about him getting into the world of acting, and he was in that Ryan Reynolds. What was that? The Christmassy movie that just came out. Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell.
Yeah, that was on Netflix, right?
Yeah. He was in that one. He's had some
service.
What was it?
I said whatever streaming service. There's so many.
Maybe I think you're right. I think it's
Paramount. I have no idea. They're all.
I think it was Netflix.
Yeah.
But he's an actor now. He's
that's great.
Yeah, he apparently was an actor in high school, and they were telling him that he should go that route. And he's like, he turns to the teacher and he's like, I'm 7 feet tall. I'm gonna be in the NBA. Maybe I'll do acting later. And then he did. He's like 44 years old now. He's doing acting anyway. But that's the problem with this, right? And I know I deviated there, but that's why LeBron James, when he goes, I heard it pop. A lot of us didn't believe him. He acts a lot. Luka Doncic, every time he gets touched, it's like, I mean, he looks like a soccer player, right? Like, oh my God, ah! And then the minute he's fine. So like you watch him limping around and you're not really sure. And that's the boy who cries wolf, right? I mean, it's a perfect example. Like, and that's what a lot of these athletes feel like to me. And Luka does. So he says that he aggravated it, right after the All-Star break. He's been playing through it. You got to wonder what this is. And now he's going to have an MRI. And this may end up being more serious than it even appeared. It might be.
It could be. Dallas was going nowhere this year. Like,
no, they can't play any defense.
They play no defense. Like, it's pathetic. But we said at the time, as everybody, and we're like, oh, can't watch the show. It's going to be unbelievable. Kyrie and Luka together. And how's it going to work? Well, Kyrie played off ball when James Harden was in Brooklyn. He could figure it out. They'll make adjustments. It'll be great. And I get Mark Cuban needing to figure something out after watching Jalen Brunson leave Dallas and go to New York. And even though he wasn't an all-star, playing at an all-star level, and he's been out the last couple of days dealing with a foot injury, but the Knicks have been transformed by the presence of Jalen Brunson here in New York in Madison Square Garden. It doesn't work. I mean, you can't outscore teams and play little to no defense. Like, you look at past NBA champions, and I think there's a stat as you were looking through it where you look at a majority, maybe it's like 80 or 90% of past NBA champions, their offensive and defensive efficiency have both been in the top 10 in the league.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be great at one and god awful at the other and expect to survive in a series. You're just, the warts of your team are gonna find itself. And that's the issue you have is, you want to say Luka's leadership, or Luka's not in great shape, or he's not a great defender, or the wing defender that they traded in order to get Kyrie Irving and Dorian Finney-Smith. I mean, whatever you want a way to look at it, Keith, you could have predicted it. They're 3-7 in their last 10 games. I mean, they are taking on water down in Dallas. Kyrie Irving's counting the days to when he becomes a free agent, this summer. It just wasn't going to work. I get the shot that Dallas took. And Dallas then will, if Irving does leave and maybe joins the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James in the offseason or goes someplace else, whatever it might be, if it's not in Dallas, they have an opportunity to sign a near max player in free agency, whoever that might be. But you can't put together the team Dallas is trying to put together on the fly and expect the results they were looking for, because I'm not a Kyrie believer. I respect his talent. I just don't think he's a good enough defensive player. We know Luka's not a great defensive player, both offensive-minded players. They don't play great team defense. That's why you're seeing Dallas drop like a stone. And as you mentioned, now Luka's dealing with a thigh injury, who after the game said it's more serious than initially thought, MRI today. So Dallas fans wait to see just how significant that thigh injury is for Luka Doncic.
It's not revisionist history. We all questioned whether or not Luka and Kyrie was going to work. And it's not even necessarily about them working together. It's about them being able to win games. And we've seen them score 80 points combined. And I think they lost that game, right? Like, so, and that's why someone wrote in the chat about the Sacramento Kings being disrespected. The Kings are a fun team. They are, but no one's betting the Kings because as great as they are scoring, they're equally as bad playing defense. They don't play defense. Knicks Kings tonight. Yeah, it's a game I'll watch. I don't know. I'm not like so super glued to it. No Jalen Brunson tonight scares me a little bit for the New York Knicks, and you never really know what you're going to get. But yeah, the Sacramento Kings can't play defense. The Mavericks can't play defense. You got to be able to play some semblance of defense to win in the playoffs. It's as simple as that.
By the way, I mean, give Fred VanVleet, and I'm sure he's going to get heftily fined by the NBA, but we got a little sound for you. Let's see if we can pull it up, boys, because last night after the Raptors went into Los Angeles and lost to the Clippers last night, 108-100, and VanVleet was one of the guys that many people thought Toronto was going to move by the NBA trade deadline. He's still a member of the Toronto Raptors. They've had issues with officiating as of late, some terrible calls. Here was the Raptors point guard being brutally honest about officiating in the NBA last night. Something that I don't think I've ever heard an NBA player do before to this level. Take a listen.
And I'll take a fine. I don't really care. I thought, I don't mind. I'll take a fine. I don't really care. I thought, Ben Taylor was fucking terrible tonight. I thought that most nights, couple of the, out of the three, there's one or two that just fucked the game up, and it's been like that a couple games in a row. Denver was tough, obviously. You come out tonight, you're competing pretty hard. The third quarter, I get a bullshit tech, changes the whole dynamic of the game, changes the whole flow of the game. And, most of the refs are trying hard. I like a lot of the refs are trying hard. They're pretty fair. They communicate well. And then you got the other ones who just want to be dicks and just kind of fucks the game up. Nobody's coming to see that shit. They come to see the players. And I think we're losing a little bit of the fabric of what the NBA is and was. And it's been disappointing this season. You could look up most of my texts this year have been with Ben Taylor officiating. So at a certain point as a player, you feel it's personal. And it's never a good place to be. That's not why we lost tonight. We got outplayed. But it definitely makes it tougher to overcome.
I think we just lost our G rating.
I think so, yes. I think so.
Oh, my God.
Dude, it is, and like obviously, it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing, and he's not wrong. Like I had a conversation going back about 7-8 years ago. I was at Joe Torre's golf event in Westchester, and I was doing a remote for WFAN. It was a midday show, and we had Joe on. And at that point in time, I still think he works for Major League Baseball, but I think at that point in time, Keith, he was working on the umpiring, and I talked to him about the relationships between players and umpires on the field, and he said, "You're spot on. That's the relationships have got to be better." Not that you're going to show any sort of favoritism or anything like that, but there was a point in time where, and you could still make the argument that there's still umpires in Major League Baseball that want to be part of it, that like to throw themselves into the mix, whether it be an inconsistent strike zone, whether it be having rabbit ears, whether it be throwing a guy out, whatever it might be. And I get it's a very, very difficult game to do when you're talking about inches, whether it's a strike, whether it's not a strike, and everything like that. And with the velocity it's being thrown, I think you make the same argument when you look at the NBA. I think that's what, and he's going to get a hefty fine. You're not going to get it suspended, but right, baby J. Angel Hernandez, he's going to get heavily fined by the NBA. But I think from a player's perspective of his quality and his ilk, and he's a really good player, I think it has to be frustrating where there are guys in the league that feel like in the NBA where on the court they want to be part of it, whatever it might be. They're going to overreact. They might want to call a game a specific way. They don't let guys play. So I don't think he's wrong. I thought it was refreshing. I couldn't believe it, what he said. I don't know what that fine's going to be. Maybe it's 50 grand, 75 grand, whatever it might be for Fred VanVleet. But he was venting last night because, you know what? He is a frustrated NBA player where clearly he doesn't like where the dynamic between the officiating on the court and the players is right now.
I was surprised he called out the official, like by name, right? Ben Taylor, not only once, but twice said it during that quote, mentioned the guy's name.
It just makes me laugh. Like I listened to it like 5 times.
Yeah.
Like it's so funny. Like it's so funny. It's just amazing.
And then you got the other ones you just want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just amazing.
So I don't know what happened. Like I watched the video, I saw him get the tech. I immediately saw Fred VanVleet say, "What did I say? What did I do? What did I say? What did I do?"
Well, and this is going back. What was it? I'm trying to remember. 2 games ago, the game before last. It was in Denver. I thought it was in Denver, but I wasn't sure. Scotty Barnes got teed up. Right. Scotty Barnes did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And the coach came out after the game and said, "I have no idea what he said. He said nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. He got teed up. It was a pivotal part of the game.
Someone got teed up for just like tossing the ball to the ref the other day too.
Right. So like clearly, and I think Barnes got to actually run out of the game. And you heard their head coach Nick Nurse after the game. He wasn't what VanVleet was last night, but was critical of it. And so I think this is it's been a long road trip. Last night was game 4 on the road trip for the Toronto Raptors as they headed out. They start off with 2 with the Wizards, then the Denver Clippers, and then they're taking on the Lakers. So they've been on the road for a while here, and I think it's just a compilation of the frustration that they're seeing from the officiating.
It was Jordan Poole, by the way.
Okay.
Tony, our one of our producers, just put it in the chat. Yeah, Jordan Poole. Yeah, I didn't understand it too. I mean, listen.
It's awesome audio. There's no other way. It's amazing audio.
You want to hear it again, don't you?
No, I do not. No, we can't play it again. There's too many curses. But
are you positive?
Yes, I'm positive.
All right.
It's amazing audio. It just is. It's like amazing. Like there will be a point today where I will go back and listen to that at least 2 more times.
Because he says it so casually too, right? Because you have no life. No, but he says it so casually, like he's just sitting there.
Like, yeah,
and it's just, I don't mind. I'll take a fine. I don't really care.
It's like you're talking about a buddy at a bar, and you're having a beer, having a soda, like you ordered some wings. By the way, you always get them extra crispy. But you order some wings.
Do you ask for your wings extra crispy? Is that what you do? That's how you order them?
Yeah.
I've never done that before.
Yeah.
Do you get them sauced, or do you get the sauce on the side and then dip?
No, I get them sauced. But extra crispy. Like I'll ask if they fry them twice.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never done that before.
Yeah, like some place, like good wing places. I'm not talking about like if you're going, like if I'm at Applebee's with the boys, like I won't do it.
But if Applebee's wants to sponsor the show, I'm sure you make great.
Right, but I'm talking about like a mom and pop, like no doubt. I'm not knocking Applebee's is great, but it's like if you go to a place that it's like known for their wings. Like there's a spot in Westchester when Donna and I were living in Harrison before we moved up to Connecticut, a place called Candlelight. Candlelight.
Are you serious? Baby, look at the chat.
Yes, there you go. Candlelight. Yes, no doubt, Baby J. Candlelight wings are fantastic.
I think you and Baby J just became best friends.
No doubt. Candlelight wings are fantastic. But when we would go to Candlelight, which is known for their wings, and they have great tater tots and stuff like that, and I think they make macaroni and cheese.
All the healthy stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. It's right. It's right there in the Keith Arizari diet, right in the middle there. But I'd go there.
You got like a month left of eating like that. That's it.
When we'd order those wings, like I'd ask them can you make them extra crispy? And they're great. They're great. Candlelight wings are. If you're ever in Westchester, like if you're ever traveling up here for a basketball tournament, and you're in the White Plains area, you gotta take your boys and Jody over to Candlelight.
What about Ribs on the Run? Do you know that one?
I do not.
Wally just wrote Ribs on the Run in White Plains.
No, never had Ribs on the Run.
I'm on a brisket kick. We know that.
Yes, you are. You are.
I was just talking about brisket again last night at dinner. Literally just discussing it. Austin looks at me, goes, enough with the brisket. I'm like, oh, but I could go for some more brisket.
Brisket's great. There's nothing not to like about good brisket.
I want brisket.
Can we talk a little Boeheim when we come back? It was a little sad.
Yes. Yeah, you're sad, and I promise you that I'm not gonna do the because I've seen some people shred Boeheim. for a few things. I'm not going to do that. This is going to be more about celebrating the coach that he was and what he built there. And I know that he was at your alma mater. I was never a huge fan of him necessarily, but I can respect everything he did on the court. He did amazing things for that university on the court.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll talk about that. I mean, listen, I think it's time, but giving my thoughts on Jim Boeheim, get Keith's thoughts on Boeheim. Plus, today it's wall-to-wall basketball. Right after we get off the air, I mean, from noon till probably like 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, it's just one college hoops game after another. I love it. I mean, I love it. Selection Sunday coming up. It's Academy Awards Sunday on Sunday night as well, if you want to partake in that.
Do you?
I'm not. No, I'm not into the award shows.
I can't imagine that you would. You have no time to watch movies.
No. I used to like the spectacle of the event, but now it's just too much. Like now,
who's hosting it?
Jimmy
Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel, I think.
Kimmel. Like there comes a point where, like now, I just don't care. Like, I don't know. I think maybe the Chris Rock getting slapped by Will Smith after that, I think that was pretty much the end for me.
I didn't get a chance to. So Chris Rock had his live Netflix show.
I know. I haven't watched it yet.
40 minutes in. I didn't get to the Will Smith stuff yet, which is all I was waiting for. And they did it on Netflix where you can't fast forward. Like I was going to skim through and fast forward because a bunch of the stuff.
How is it so far through 40 minutes?
Honestly, not very good.
Oh, okay. I love Chris Rock.
I do too. I find it very lackluster.
All right. Well, Ernie says it sucks. All right. Well, that's not really. Maybe I don't need to watch it then. We'll come back. We'll talk a little Boeheim. We'll do that next. It's Moose and Keith with you. I just got take that off the to-do list. Do not watch the Chris Rock special.
Yeah.
That's
nothing special.
Nothing great.
Yeah.
Moose
he
and
also
Keith,
looked
Thursday,
like he was wearing high heels.
Bettor Sports Network.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray. Weekdays at noon Eastern, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
Vladdy swings at the first pitch and lines it into right center.
How did a guy who was being selected in the first round pretty well everywhere last year, he proceeded to lose 33 runs, to lose 16 homers, to lose 14 RBIs, and to lose 37 points in batting average. Oh, and 184 points in OPS. He went down everywhere. How does that guy, Vlad Jr., still register as the #1 fantasy first baseman? Ahead of Paul Goldschmidt, who won the MVP last season. Ahead of Mr. Freddie Freeman, who does the same thing every year, which is hit .315 with 25 homers and 100 ribbies. Ray, it's like Vlad Guerrero Jr. had nothing to worry about. It's like they thought they were getting him and his dad, as you can see there on the photo. You get both of them when you draft him at #1. I'm just surprised, and it was not a bad season, but Ray, it was such a disappointment compared to what he posted in 2000.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair to say. Vladimir Guerrero, in 3 of the 4 years, he's been average to good. He had one spectacular season. And we keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. The positives are the lineage, positives are the skill set, positives are the StatCast data, which everything's like top 5% murders the baseball. The negatives are he has not hit 275 in 3 or 4 years. We keep talking about this too. He does not hit the ball in the air. It's remarkable, his ability to hit 30-plus home runs, given that he never gets the ball in the air. His ground ball rate last year was 52%.
Well, and we're asking the question, how is he still #1 at first? But what catches me even more so, Ray, is the overall. I mean, he's a first-round pick overall, and I don't think he has any business in the first round. I look at his profile, and there are so many guys going behind Vlad that just have business in the first round that deserve to be there. Freeman, Machado, Bichette, Rafael Devers, I think maybe Pete Alonso. Put Austin Riley ahead of him. If he gets 310, 30, 190, he's a first rounder.
I think the play with Vlad is the batting average because he hits the ball monstrously hard. I could see him hitting 320.
Can you hit 320 with a 52% ground ball rate?
You can, but it helps if you're athletic and fast. And he's
yeah, exactly. And I get it. His hit tool's strong, Ray, and he's good. It's funny his ground ball percentage is that high because on the occasions when I get to watch Blue Jays baseball, I don't see it. I see him hit the ball. Like, and it's not really grounders. I'm surprised the number is that high. It feels like he stings the baseball, but I guess there's just no lift overall in his game.
It's just a little tweak to his swing that could really lead to that growth back toward where he was in the home run column. And I think people, he's done it. This is not hypothetical. He did it 2 years ago, and he's still just 23.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team while you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network.
It was a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and pepper and heavy D up in the limousine.
It's Moose and Keith with Mark Malusis and Keith Irizarry.
So after Syracuse lost in heartbreaking fashion yesterday, first round Wake Forest on a last-second 3, Jim Boeheim addressed the media. And here's what he had to say when he was asked the question about whether or not he was coming back for Syracuse. Take a listen.
But I've just been lucky to be able to coach this long. I think you missed it. I gave my retirement speech on the court last Saturday, and I gave it in the press conference afterwards, and nobody except William Payne figured it out.
Excuse me?
Are you saying right now that you're going to retire?
This is up to the university.
You want to come back?
I didn't say that.
Okay, but so what are you saying? You're not saying you're retiring, but you're not.
I just said it. I don't know.
So you don't know. Okay.
I said this is up to the university.
And you're not sure whether you're how will you make a determination about when you will come back?
You're talking to the wrong guy.
Well, there you have it. That was Boeheim afterward. Then shortly after that, Syracuse announced that Boeheim was retiring after 47 years. I don't know why he has to be so cantankerous. Love that word, by the way, with the media after the game. It was a heartbreaking loss. I get it. 47 years. Adrian Red Autry, former player up at Syracuse, his lead assistant, is going to take over as head coach for the Syracuse Orange. And kudos to him. There's no doubt. Syracuse finished the year, I think they were 17-15 or 17-16, something like that. Clearly, obviously, they're not going to the NCAA tournament. But, I mean, Boeheim is a guy that, 2-3 zone, we know that. Won a national championship in 03 with Carmelo down in New Orleans. The block by Akeem Warwick of Keith Lee and the Jayhawks. A disappointing ousters. I think it was the first 2 seed to lose to a 15 in the NCAA tournament, and that was to Richmond, and that was the Billy Owens team. Lost a heartbreaking national championship game to Keith Smart in Indianapolis and Bob Knight in the Indiana Hoosiers, and that was with Derek Coleman, Stevie Thompson, Sherman Douglas, Ronnie Cycli. All those guys obviously played in the NBA. Coach legends like Pearl Washington, Billy Owens, Carmelo Anthony, Derek Coleman, run through the list. 35 times Syracuse went to the NCAA tournament under the guidance of Jim Boeheim. They went to 5 Final Fours. They won 1 national championship. I thought one of the great coaching jobs Boeheim ever did was that team in 96 when I was up at Syracuse where they lost to Pitino in Kentucky in the national championship game. And that was the Kentucky team that had Ron Marshall on it. And that was right after Pitino then went back to the NBA to be the head coach of the Boston Celtics. But, I mean, that team had Lazarus Sims and Todd Bergen and Otis Hill and John Wallace, J.B. Reef-Snyder. It was one of the great coaching jobs that you can remember for a team that didn't win a national championship. There's a lot to Jim Boeheim's coaching legacy, but think about this. He spent 60 years of his life at Syracuse.
Yep.
As a player, as a assistant, as a grad assistant, and then eventually as a head coach. 60 years in that city for that university, building that program to national prominence that he did. An absolutely legendary head coach. It's time. I mean, I think with the way that the program and the lack of talent coming in, where the program is right now, it was time for Jim Boeheim to step aside. I don't know why it needed to go down the way it did yesterday after the game, but I think there are a lot of Syracuse fans that are thankful for what Jim Boeheim did, but understanding that all good things sometimes must come to an end, and they need a new vision for the Syracuse program, and it's going to be Red Autry.
Moose, I think that when you heard that sound, no matter what you think of Boeheim, it sounds like the university was more pushing this on him. Like maybe, Boeheim may have wanted to stay another year or two or whatever it is. Kind of sounds like the university was like, all right, Jim, it's enough already. I think that he becomes a really difficult tale to discuss because I think when you think about Jim Boeheim, you think of Syracuse. And when you think about Syracuse, you think of Jim Boeheim. And that's the good, right? And again, I'm not going to sit here and rain on the parade that is Jim Boeheim the day after he retires. But I do think that there are layers to this, right? The legendary coaching status, it's there. Second most wins of all time. 23 players under his tutelage went on to be drafted in the first round in the NBA. Those numbers, astronomical. You can't take away what he has meant to the game, to the sport of college basketball. The 2-3 matchup zone was not a thing that people routinely did. Actually, the 2-3 zone was thought of as being lazy as a coach. But Boeheim changed that. He made it a thing where you can't prepare for us, and that's why we're going to make runs every NCAA tournament, even if we don't have the best players on there. Now, I do think towards the end of all of this, and I'm not going to talk about, like, we don't have to talk, like, they're the other skeletons and stuff that happened over the years, whatever. That's not for today. The way he treated the media over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it was awful.
It was enough already. Like, at some point, you need to look in a mirror and say, do I need to be a jerk to this 19-year-old boy or girl that's asking me questions? I don't have to be a jerk to that person, right? So I think that there's a lot of people today, not you necessarily, Moose. I know you're a Syracuse guy, but there's a lot of people today that didn't necessarily say it the way you did. Like, it was time. There are a lot of people that are saying good riddance, that they're happy that he's gone.
Yeah.
And that's the shame of it, because he was a legendary coach on the floor.
Correct. And I think good riddance, because it's one thing to be cantankerous like Greg Popovich was when you're the head coach of a great Spurs team. It's hard to be that way when your team's not particularly good. And when you call out programs like, who do you call out? Pitt and Miami and was that Pitt and some other program this year, and then had to quickly for buying players or buying their program, or because with the NIL deals, and then had to quickly a couple of days later, I'm sure at the behest of the university, had to go out and apologize for the comments that he had to make. Like, you can't do that. Like, I think in the end, he probably grew frustrated with the way that the landscape had changed in college basketball. Being a guy that built his program with the way that he did it, built it to where he was the decision maker if you were staying or going. There wasn't the power to the player. The power was to the coaches. And I'm not telling you it's a bad thing for college basketball, but the landscape has changed. So therefore, you're seeing guys that, that believed in coaching a certain way and building a player up to where, they start to play their best as a junior and a senior, maybe late sophomore year. Now those guys have got to go get playing time. I'm not making excuses for them. Syracuse is no longer getting the players. And there was a point in time about 10 years ago, it might have been even a little bit longer. Mike Hopkins was the lead assistant, just like Red Autry was. And there was a plan that Jim Boeheim was going to step aside after 2-3 years, and Mike Hopkins was going to take over the program. Never happened. Hopkins left, became the head coach of Washington. And Syracuse went through a changing of presidents and athletic directors, and there was a lot of transition, and Jim Boeheim stuck there and stayed there. It was just time. But you're not wrong, Keith. I think there's a lot of people that love Syracuse basketball, that love college basketball, that just thought it was time, and it didn't end the way that a lot of people expected it to end. And it ended as abruptly as it did yesterday in losing in the early round in the ACC tournament. And it was really, really cantankerous and at times nasty with the media down the stretch of this final season.
You finished Syracuse 99?
Yeah.
All right. So how available was he to you as a student broadcaster?
You could go to pressers. I went to a ton of practices. I wouldn't tell you I knew Jim Boeheim really well. I knew him probably more as a producer for Mike and Chris than I did as a student.
All right, so
because he would always come on after Selection Sunday. That Monday, he'd always come on with Chris and Mike when I was producing at WFAN. Was a big friend of the show, and there you won't find a more knowledgeable guy, not just about college basketball, about the NBA game, about everything. Like Boeheim is one of those guys that when he leaves the practice court, like he's watching everything.
do you have any stories for us from when you were a student? Any interactions that stood out to you from Coach Boeheim?
No, nothing. I mean, just he was never nasty to me. Like I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I saw him. I guess I asked maybe a few times. The questions I asked didn't rub him the wrong way. I saw him get that way. He was one of those guys where I get why people from the outside view him the way that they view him. Because he didn't do himself any favors. It was always a pained expression on the bench, the whining nature, the crying nature, all that complaining. His team's coming up short when he had really, really talented teams in the NCAA tournament. But he also helped define a conference. When Dave Gavitt, put together the Big East, when you think about the legendary coaches, when the Big East was the Big East, because it's not that anymore. But when you think about when it was John Thompson at Georgetown, when it was Carnesecca at St. John's, when it was Rick Pitino at Providence, when it was Boeheim at Syracuse, you think about with Jim Calhoun at UConn.
Yep.
You think about when the Big East was really, arguably top to bottom, might have been the best college basketball conference in America. You had legendary men running those programs, and it's no longer the same. So, but I get the perception of Boeheim from the outside. I was up there when they named the court. They took on Georgetown. I drove up there with a couple buddies of mine, Ray Martell and James McDonald. McDonald's a guy that I went to high school with.
I saw you and Ray tweeting, yeah.
Yeah, so we drove up there, stayed at a dump of a hotel. That's what Ray was tweeting about last night a little bit. And but we were up there that night, and it was great. Like, you go up to Syracuse if you've never been, he is a god. I mean, he just is. He gave everything he could to that program in that city. I get the negative aspects to him, and we're not even getting into all the layers that come along with it.
Sure.
But he is going to be, anytime you see life moves on after 47 years, now it's going to be Red Autry's program to run, and hopefully Adrian does a great job with it.
You think Adrian keeps the 2-3 zone, or does he move on with the times?
No, I think he adjusts.
Yeah.
I think he's going to run the program as he sees fit. Listen, it all comes down to this. Like you mentioned it, how many first-round picks over the years? 25?
23.
23, right? So 23 first-round picks. So everything's changed. Number one is you got to have the financial backing and NIL deals. I mean, you just do. I mean, that comes along with the territory. You've got to have a program that somebody knows that you can develop them as players, win basketball games collegiately, but develop them individually to be able to make it to be able to play professionally, whether that be in the NBA or whether that be over in Europe, that you're going to be able to step foot on that campus and enjoy it. And that's really what it comes down to. I don't think Autry is going to do something that he doesn't believe in. I couldn't tell you for a shadow of a fact he won't play a little bit 2-3 zone. The problem is that now everybody shoots, and it's hard with that zone. It's a matchup problem. It is, but you see that. I mean, you saw John Chaney's matchup zone that he used to run down in Temple, and John Chaney was a legendary coach, and that was always a matchup nightmare in the NCAA tournament until athletes got better and teams adjusted, and you need to adjust as a head coach as well. So. It's difficult. When you're replacing a legend, it's difficult, but Autry's been there a while, was a great player for Syracuse too. I wish him nothing but the best, obviously.
It's funny. I want to see Syracuse be amazing right away. I do. I
would understand.
I want to see them as a top 25 team next year under Autry. I want to see them be 1,000,000% relevant again.
So I was on the court, so just a quick story, not a Boeheim story. So this was my first year up at Syracuse. First year up at Syracuse. We lived in a dorm right next to the Carrier Dome.
Nice.
And there were times where, the a lot of the athletes used to live on South Campus, which was away. And that's where like the athletic facilities were, like the football fields were, and all that, the workout stuff. But there were times where during the course of the regular season, especially before a big game, Georgetown coming in, St. John's coming in, whatever it might be, where the Syracuse team would practice at the Carrier Dome during the course of the day. So me and my buddies were walking to class one day, and we realized that the dome was open. We went down, walked down, and the floor was open. There was nobody on the court. There were basketballs and everything. We went on the court and started shooting hoops.
Nice.
Right? Started playing hoops on the court on the dome until Lazarus Sims, who was the point guard then, and he's an assistant for Boeheim now, walked on the court, and he's like, get the off of the court.
Jeez. Wow.
Like, you got it.
Wow. Oh man. So it just happened to be that the door was open.
Yeah. You just
funny.
walk by.
Yeah.
I mean, it just became common practice. You walk past the Carrier Dome every single day. I know it's got a new name now, but it'll always be the Carrier Dome to me. But yeah, that was it. So it was fun. Yeah.
My only similar story to that was Hofstra was playing basketball down at Maryland.
Yeah.
And a bunch of us decided to go down there, and we wanted to check out the campus too. So after the basketball game was over, it's 9:30 at night. So we're walking around campus, just checking it out. And Bird Stadium, the football stadium, one of the gates was open. So my buddy runs to the car, gets a football out of his trunk, and it was like 8 of us. We all went on the football field, could barely see anything. We started kicking field goals, throwing the football around. And then we hear a security guard, what are you doing down there? We all sprinted and just got off the field fast.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
That is great. By the way, can I mention one thing before we go to break? Because it bothers me, because I feel bad for him. Can you explain to me the rule why Merrimack is not
it's dumb.
in? Like, how stupid of a rule could you possibly be? And if you're unfamiliar with it, Merrimack beat Fairleigh Dickinson in the NEC Conference Championship game. However, they transitioned from Division II to Division I, and you've got to wait 5 years before you can become NCAA tournament eligible, even if you win your conference tournament championship. So FDU a couple days ago celebrated after making it to the championship game that they were going to the NCAA tournament, and they are.
Yeah, it was whoever won that semifinal game automatically was getting the...
Yeah, because Merrimack was in the championship game.
Yeah.
So Merrimack beats Fairleigh Dickinson in the championship game, yet they're not going to the NCAA tournament because of some dopey NCAA rule. And I saw Patino mention this on social media the other day, where he was saying, like, think about the kids. This is not about some rule. Like, I don't understand that. Why do you need to wait 5 years? Like,
and the silliness is it should be the other way. Like, it would be like if a D1 program moved down to D2 and then still had some D1 players on the team. You know what I mean? Like, going down would make sense, but going up, you're like, you moved up in your abilities. Why am I being
actually like those kids may never get? They might not win their conference tournament next year.
No.
No team every single year is one and the same. There's going to be adjustments. There's going to be changes. So you mean to tell me that they can't go to the NCAA tournament because they have to wait 5 years?
The one thing I forgot to look, can they go to the NIT, or they can't go to any postseason?
I have no idea. I'm not sure.
I forgot to look that up. If anybody could check that.
The NIT is not the same. Like, we were talking about the other day. I feel bad for Hofstra, obviously. But when Hofstra lost in their semifinals of the Colonial, we talked about them going to the NIT for sure. It's just not one and the same. I mean, it's just not. Everyone wants to get into the dance. The field of 68. It's getting unveiled on Sunday night. Merrimack should be a part of it.
I agree.
The NCAA needs to adjust those rules. Like, you can't have a team win the conference championship, the other team celebrating because they just made it to the championship game. Fairleigh Dickinson loses the title game, yet it's Fairleigh Dickinson that's going to the tournament.
It's a silly...
Makes no sense.
Yeah, you called it dopey. You are correct.
It's dopey.
Yeah. Here's what's not dopey. Play our NFL free agency match game at bettorsports.com/game. Match 10 NFL free agents with the NFL teams that you think will sign contracts. The first prize is a $250 gift card to the bettersports.com collectible shop where you can purchase authentic hand-signed merchandise of your NFL players. Play the NFL free agency match game right now at bettersports.com/game.
Love it. Let's get into a little NFL. Let's do that next. Plus, we got some NHL plays.
We also
Rangers
still have
back in
Draymond,
action.
by the way.
Yeah, we got to hear from Draymond as well.
That's your boy.
Yes. Ken Barkley as well from You Better You Bet is going to
That's
join
also
us.
your boy.
I love Ken. He's great.
Ken,
you know,
your favorite Barkley, Saquon, Charles, or Ken? Ooh.
well, it's Saquon.
But is Ken ahead of Charles? Is it close?
Probably. Close. I love Charles Barkley. Like, wouldn't you like if there was one?
How about Matt Barkley?
No. Overrated. Never reached his potential. Like, if you think about one athlete or commentator that you'd like to have dinner with, like Charles Barkley would probably be number one on my list. Like, you could talk about anything with Charles Barkley. Like, he would have you rolling and laughing, being blunt, being honest.
Shaq would be fun too.
Shaq would be fun too, but sometimes he mumbles. Like,
but I think if you're in person, you'd be able to understand.
Maybe.
It.
And Shaq's a good guy. I mean, you see it all the time around the holidays. Like, he'll go into, like you saw it this past year, right around Christmas time, him going into a jewelry store. Some guy's about to buy an engagement ring, and he told the owner of the shop, I'll buy him the ring.
Yeah. Shaq the Claus, right?
Like, that's amazing. Like, you think about that. Like, that's just so generous, so amazing, so fantastic. I'm not telling you I wouldn't like to have dinner with Shaq, but Barkley would be at the top.
I'm trying to think of former athletes.
Well, think about it. We'll get back into
David
it.
Ortiz.
Ortiz would be good.
I know I'm not supposed to say that because I'm a Yankee guy, but David Ortiz, I think, would be fun to hang out with. Yeah.
I
like that.
I ran Barkley.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I go Charles and Saquon.
The other
and then
day,
yeah.
We didn't even talk about it. The other day was a glorious day in the Malusis household because Saquon Barkley is still going to be a Giant. Like I mentioned, I had the fear of God of Saquon Barkley being someplace else.
Did you hear any of these rumors about like the Buffalo Bills are going to try to pry him away kind of thing?
They're not good. They're not.
The Giants, right?
Jane said yesterday the Giants are still negotiating a long-term deal with them.
Good,
they're not going to get.
I want Saquon. I think Saquon.
The Bills have got enough issue. They got to go find. They need to develop a run game, get that offensive line back going, and get the elbow of Josh Allen healthy. Don't worry about Saquon Barkley. He's not going anywhere. He wants to be a Giant. The Giants are going to try and lock him up long term. We'll see if that happens. We'll get into Draymond Green, the NFL, and some NHL plays. We got an action-packed final hour. Ken Barkley from You Better You Bet will join Keith and myself next. We're coming right back right here. Moose and Keith on the Better Sports Network.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray. Weekdays at noon Eastern, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
We're talking catchers. And Ray, as we jump into this position, traditionally, this has been a position that you kind of say, well, there's like 2-3 guys and the rest is just junk. And gosh, I'm in a 2-catcher league. How in the hell am I going to fill 2 spots, in this 12-man league? And oh, it's such a struggle after the 8th catcher. Like, fair to say it's different now? I mean, I know it's not great, but it feels like the best catcher pool I've seen in a while, like at least a half decade in terms of, wow, we've got some hitters, we've got guys, and I know they're not exclusively catchers, and the DH is helping, certainly, but it looks like we're going, 10, 12 deep at least of feeling good about catchers, I think.
I tier the players at positions because I think that's a really good way to look at them. And when you tier players, you're basically putting guys that are likely to produce similar levels of production in the same tier. One guy might be batting average, one guy might be home runs, that kind of a thing, but basically the same end result value-wise. I have 2 guys on the elite tier. I then have 9 guys or 8 guys on the next tier. And then I go all the way to 22 on the 3rd tier, which basically almost gets us to that, 2 catchers in the 24, 12-team league kind of thing. So I agree with you. And I think that even if you look beyond that, there's some names that are outside my top 20 that I could easily see being top 15 catchers this year. So yeah, it's not wow, but it's good overall. We got some young guys coming in that are dynamic players to help out some of the older guys that are still hanging on. It's better than it has been. I agree with you.
It's actually very young, Ray. And that, I mean, you look at Varsho, Rauschman, William Contreras, Kirk, Melendez, Cal Riley's semi-young, but Hebert Ruiz, And there's still other guys coming up that are in the minors right now. That's, we used to always say all these young catchers, just catch, don't worry about hitting. These guys are coming up with some skill sets as well.
Yeah, and the game is different now, right? Back in the day, you were an old dude that had no athleticism. You're good at blocking balls, and we hoped you'd pop 15 home runs, right? That was kind of the MO. Now it's different. Now we get more athletic guys. It's not that, you have to be some dumpy, slow guy catching. You can be an athletic player that can play other positions, as you noted. So I think the youngsters are bringing more athleticism, kind of like the tight end position in football, right? It's like there is more athleticism at the tight end spot than there was 25 years ago. I think it's the same way at the catcher spot.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team while you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network. It's Moose and Keith with Mark Malusis and Keith Irizarry.
Ah, yes. It is. 26 years ago, unfortunately, Biggie was taken from us.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I'm good. I was just vibing out.
We mentioned it, teased it going into break. How about Draymond Green? Let's play the comments from the Warriors forward last night. And he was on attack. Take a listen.
This idiot said, I don't know what Draymond does out there. He said, I don't like Draymond at all. You don't know me. I just don't like Golden State. I quite frankly wouldn't like a team that beats me all the time either. I don't like anything to do with them. Quite frankly, you were a little kid in high school watching us win championships. Should be happy that you even witnessed that, or maybe college, but you get the point. You're a fan. Draymond talks a lot. You talk a lot now, so if you have 4 rings, sure, you talk a lot more. For All-Stars, you probably talk a bit more. Defensive Player of the Year, you for damn sure would talk more. 2 Olympic gold medals, you definitely would be talking, because that would mean you beat Team USA, and we all know how that goes. So gets away with a lot too. What exactly do I get away with? I have 15 texts, 1 less than your dumb ass. Okay, great. His game is cool. If you ever wondered why the Memphis Grizzlies is not ready to compete for a championship, look no further than this idiot right here. They're actually depending on this guy to help them win a championship. And he says his game is cool. Quite frankly, that just shows how little you know about basketball. And yet you running around talking about a dynasty? The dynasty starts after you, not with you. He plays with heart, knows the ins and outs of the defense. I want to be quite frank, I made the ins and outs of our defense. I guess that's why they like him over there. I'm trying to figure out why they like you in Memphis. Or do they like you in Memphis? That's a better question. I'm not sure your teammates like you, but I can tell you why they like me over there. When you contribute in the way that I have contributed to 4 championships, they tend to like you. So next time you speak up on me, you should do some fact checking. Next time you speak up on me, you should do some soul searching. Next time you speak up on me, I hope you're in a better situation than you in now, where the guys you play with actually enjoy playing with you because they actually think you're contributing to winning. Because it ain't happening right now, champ. You're not a champ. You're a clown. It ain't happening for you.
Called him a clown.
There you go.
Draymond's grown on me over the years. I was very anti-Draymond early on. I was.
Well, he was on the attack. I didn't explain. He was on the attack against Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, sorry. Dylan Brooks, yes. Dylan Brooks was asked questions about the Golden State Warriors, and then he chose to direct most of his ire towards Draymond Green. A lot of people have done that over the years with Draymond Green. A lot of people think that he has been more, he's a glue guy, right? Like that's what people view him as. He's never been a super uber star. Steph is. Clay's been one of the best shooters in the history of the game. Kevin Durant for 2 titles was the best player on that team. And Draymond's always been like excellent defender, really good facilitator, and just good guy to have on a roster. But when push comes to shove, Draymond's going to end up being a first ballot Hall of Famer with 4 titles, a handful of All-Stars, a defensive player of the year, and he's going to have one heck of a media career afterwards. Because like you talk about Charles Barkley, he's Charles Barkley 2.0. Like that's the path he's going.
He's just not as good as Barkley.
But all right, you're right. But
he's not the player Barkley was.
Right, but when we think about the end, someone always says, and I'd like to give credit to the person who says it, and I apologize, I can't. Maybe more than one people do. Can you tell the story of, let's say, the NBA without this person? You can't tell the story of the NBA without Draymond Green because of what he meant to the Warriors. I could tell the story of the NBA without Charles Barkley. I can.
Oh, I totally disagree.
Charles Barkley, what did Charles Barkley do in the NBA that mattered? He was an all-star. That's what he was. He won 1 MVP. He was an all-star.
I mean,
right?
Well, you can't. I mean, Charles Barkley is a significantly better player than Draymond Green ever has been.
There's a lot of great. Dominique Wilkins was a significantly better player.
Barkley was better than Dominique Wilkins.
No, what I'm saying though is Draymond Green, for what he and Max Kellerman, thanks for working grind. He's the one that always says that line. But when you think about the NBA,
yeah,
like Charles Barkley was a great player. Draymond Green was part of great teams, and you can't talk about the Warriors without talking about Draymond Green.
Yeah, but he wasn't the reason why the Warriors won.
Right, but I can talk about the 90s basketball without Barkley.
I think I would have a hard time talking about the 90s without Charles Barkley. For his impact off the court, his impact on the court. I would have a very difficult time. Like, the problem with the difference between Draymond Green and Barkley is that Barkley has the cachet of being an immortal, an all-time great. That's what Charles Barkley is. Draymond Green is not that. And I like Draymond. I was when he was getting drafted and got drafted, I thought Draymond Green would have a really good NBA career. Did I think he would have the kind of career he had now? I think he landed in a perfect spot.
Yeah.
He's got Steph. He's got, obviously, he's the defensive player on the team. He had other guys around him. Cost him an NBA championship by kicking LeBron James in the balls, though. I mean, so let's not forget about that. But, the idea that you look at Draymond Green as a player, and you mentioned as being a glue guy. The cachet about Barkley as an analyst is that, and the reason why a lot of people pay attention to what he has to say, number one is he's played at that level. Draymond Green has never played at the level that Charles Barkley played as an NBA player. Not even close.
Correct. And Barkley, the 1 MVP season was amazing. Charles Barkley also never won a title.
Great. I understand that. But also Barkley there's been all-time we can get into the conversation. Does that mean that Dan Marino's not an all-time great quarterback?
No. That's I mean, that's not my point. Barkley has all the cachet. I agree. But like, it really just dawned on me right there talking. And again, I start this by saying I was never a Draymond guy, but the NBA, like the generation that Draymond played in, he was really important to.
Yeah, and you can work and grind, say cachet can come from more than one place. It can for sure. I'm not trying to minimize what Draymond Green has to say or anything. The interesting thing with the fact of, you look at Green, who was, by all accounts, was overweight at Michigan State, has transformed his body, bought into and lost weight and trimmed down, and found a role, became a defensive player, became an antagonist for the Golden State Warriors, and found his role on a team, and was able to find that role around guys that could absolutely shoot the rock, where he's got one of his teammates is arguably the greatest shooter of all time. You look at Dylan Brooks, who was a second-round pick coming out of Oregon, and he's a guy that's also transformed his body. You go back to his days at Oregon, was overweight. He comes into the NBA and has cut a role out for the Memphis Grizzlies to where he toes the line, but he's an instigator. He's an antagonizer. He crosses the line at times. We mentioned it the other day when, with the stuff with Donovan Mitchell, when he hits him in the groin. That stuff can't be – you have to have respect for the teammates. But give Dylan Brooks a lot of credit because I don't think there's a lot of people that thought when he was getting drafted out of Oregon that thought that Dylan Brooks would probably be sticking around the way that he stuck around so far up until this point in his career. Is he the caliber of player that Draymond Green is? I'd never say that. I really wouldn't. But you look at the career arcs of both players is that, there were a lot of doubters of both players coming into the league, and both of them have found a role within it. It's interesting where, Draymond brings up the fact of whether or not Dylan Brooks is liked by his teammates. Well, Draymond, we have you punching a teammate before the start of the season.
Yep.
You have the Golden State Warriors. There's got to be some tangible reason why Golden State is so good at home, and they've got one of the top 5 worst road records in the NBA this season.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a case that there's factions. Maybe there's, maybe it's a case. Maybe it's a case that, all guys aren't bought in. But I'm not telling you that I'd love Dylan Brooks as a teammate or anything like that. I don't know. And maybe Draymond's right that Dylan Brooks isn't liked by teammates on the Memphis Grizzlies. But sometimes you have to evolve as a player in order to find a role because you're not as athletically gifted as others. And Draymond did that with Golden State, and Dylan has done that with the Memphis Grizzlies. But, back to the point is, Draymond's going to have an unbelievable broadcasting career. He's an outspoken guy. He's well thought out. He's got the cachet of being a world champion multiple times over. He's got great relationships within the NBA. Do I think it's going to have the same punch as Barkley? I don't. I just think Charles is different as a broadcaster.
I think there's something lovable about so I just want to double back, and I'm not trying to belittle anything that Charles Barkley has done. I think there is something also very lovable about him too, because he talks his talk. He, for the most part,
anger.
Yeah, it's not anger. He talks his talk. He backs it up, and I mean,
like the other day, and he's not trying to belittle anybody what they're doing. Like he brings up, I don't know if you heard the clip on the Denver radio station where I think it was Altitude or something like that. I might be wrong on that, but the clip that went viral where he was critical of Kendrick Perkins when Kendrick Perkins and JJ Redick got into it on First Take about Nikola Jokic and voting, and
it was a racially charged thing. Yes,
correct, no doubt about it. So Barkley was asked about it, and he's like, "Listen," he was asked the question, "Did you see what transpired this morning on ESPN?" And Barkley's response, and it still makes me laugh right now, he says, "No, I have a life." Like it was just, he goes, "I'm not sitting around watching people debate on sports on TV when I wake up in the morning." He goes, I'm working on a fade. I'm right now on the golf course. No, I didn't watch it. Like it's just those like one-liners, but you're right. Yeah. There's a lovability factor to Barkley that there aren't many broadcasters, if any, have that. And it's impossible to pin down how you get it, but he has it. That there are a lot of people that, could watch Charles Barkley talk about many different things. And that's why there's been some conversations about him doing some stuff on CNN potentially down the line, because, Barkley's a guy that I think people, even though you might not agree with him on everything that he has to say, and you might vehemently disagree with some of the things he has to say, he gets a reaction, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, he's good for television. Yes,
yeah, you no doubt. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could tell the story of the NBA without talking about Charles Barkley.
See, because I think
maybe I'm holding him in too high regard.
I think you are.
Maybe it's just the time I grew up in.
Yeah, no, and you and I grew up in the same time. But I think that if Charles Barkley wasn't on television right now, you could tell the story of the NBA without Charles Barkley. You could.
Yeah, you could. I'm sorry. Schefter just tweeted out the Jets just agreed to a trade.
Yeah. All right. So you're gonna do this to us? You're gonna try to make everyone in our chat quickly go, oh my god, we got Aaron. No. You got Chuck Clark.
Trade?
Chuck Clark.
Okay.
You know who Chuck Clark is?
Safety.
Yeah.
From the Ravens.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah. No, I do not.
I would have liked it to be Frank Clark.
2024 7th-round pick to the Ravens in exchange for safety Chuck Clark.
Yeah. Riveting stuff.
That's it. Anyway.
Chuck Clark. Chuck Clark. I mean, honestly, I've heard the name before.
I've heard, yeah.
But I don't know that
I remember
much
the
about
great
him.
Chuck Cecil.
Ooh, Chuck Cecil. Good pull by you.
He was a good safety. Whenever I think of Chuck, I think about him.
Chuck Clark had 101 tackles last year.
All right, there you go. Well, obviously not valued by Baltimore. They gave up a safe
Chuck Clark.
7th-round pick for Chuck Clark. Before we get Ken Barkley, who's going to join us bottom of the hour, one other thing on the NFL. Obviously, Rodgers stuff. We'll see exactly if it happens, but there's growing optimism, according to Diana Rossini from ESPN, from owner Woody Johnson, after the 11 hours they spent in Malibu courting Aaron Rodgers. Clearly, it comes down to this. If Rodgers wants to play football in 2023, it's not going to be in Green Bay. Like, the Packers have emotionally
He's going to be a Jet.
He's going to be a Jet.
He's
Eventually. And the conversations are going back and forth between the Jets and the Packers on a potential package and what it would cost the Jets to get Aaron Rodgers. But we're inching closer and closer to finalizing some of the speculation that we've had. Went through all the Derek Carr scenario. It looks like Aaron Rodgers eventually is going to be a New York Jet at some point in time. And like we talked about yesterday, Keith, it will be the biggest story in the NFL.
Yeah.
It will be unbelievable. Like, I'm just excited thinking about it. Like, it's going to
be awesome.
It's going to be amazing. Imagine Aaron Rodgers leading the Jets into Foxborough.
It's going to be amazing.
Oh, my God. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
As Mac Jones, just a guy taking on Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. Oh, my. It's going to be awesome.
Yep. I'm going to bring you down for a second, though. And so we're going to do hockey in like 2 minutes, but just really fast. It's a breaking story over the last 20 minutes or so, something that we'll monitor. It's a developing story. I will read you the lines from fansided.com. Cody Williams is the person who put out a bunch of it's all over social media now. But ex-girlfriend of Jamar Chase, Amber Nicole, they have a child together. She tweeted out or Instagrammed out, "Now, Mr. Chase, you have some skeletons in your closet. I know the real you. Stop dodging the courts and responsibility. You know yourself. I have multiple videos that will end your career in one post. I'll have my attorney at the Bengals facility in 2.5 seconds. You know what's up." So again, developing story. It's not just this one thing. And the post, God bless, the post has been deleted, but apparently there is something that she has that she like accusations towards Jamar Chase. So we will see how this plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't obviously.
Again, hard to react to this. There. We don't know anything exactly.
Yeah, we don't know. We'll see if this.
But I felt like we're sitting here today. Yeah. I don't know if this becomes a monster story, 3-4 hours from now, or if this ends up being a nothing story.
Making something out bigger than it is.
You never know.
Don't know. Don't know. We'll continue to monitor that story. All right, let's get to it. A little betting the boards.
Throw down them gloves. Better Sports Network presents Betting the Boards with Moose and Keith.
All right, NHL, a lot of games tonight. You love the NHL. I love the NHL. I got 4 plays for you tonight. Let's start up in Montreal. Rangers back in action. Obviously, Patrick Kane, Tarasenko and company. I'm going to take the Rangers. I'm going to take them on the puck line tonight. Minus 111. Disappointing first game for the Blue Shirts with Patrick Kane. They took on the Boston Bruins over the weekend. Back in action tonight against the Canadiens. Give me the Rangers. Montreal's terrible. Give me the Blue Shirts on the puck line, minus 111. Oilers and Bruins. Keith mentioned earlier about the Bruins. If they win and get a little bit of help, they can clinch a playoff spot tonight. I mean, they've won, 10 in a row? I mean, Boston, all they do is win hockey games. Oilers in town. I'm going over the 6.5 goals, minus 120 between the Bruins and the Oilers tonight up in Beantown. I'm going to take a dog tonight I like the LA Kings. They're on the road in Colorado taking on the Avalanche. You look at Los Angeles, and they could easily win their division. They're 17-11-6 on the road this year. They've won 4 in a row. They're plus 138 on the road tonight in Colorado. I'm going to take the LA Kings as a road dog tonight in Colorado, taking on the Avalanche. Final pick of the day, Flyers in Carolina. You know Philly's terrible. Think about this. Philadelphia with Tortorella, first year with him as head coach. Goal differentials minus 43. That's awful. Hurricanes, puck line, minus 146. Carolina, they've won 3 straight as well. They're one of the teams that we talked about in the Eastern Conference. So give me the Carolina Hurricanes tonight on the puck line at home against Philadelphia. Minus 146. So Canes minus 146. Kings plus 138. Over 6.5 goals between the Bruins and the Oilers.
Lower that music a little bit, guys. Bring that music down just a little bit. All right. Let me break those down for you. Love your Rangers pick, even on the road. Montreal, just a bad hockey team right now. Rangers need a bounce back. They're going to get it. Oilers average almost 4 goals per game, 3.86. That's number 1 in the NHL. The Bruins are number 2 in the NHL at 3.77. So I love your total there. I would also maybe throw in Connor McDavid to get a goal. I saw it on FanDuel at minus 102 if you want to ride. If you think there's going to be 7 goals scored in that game, then there's a good chance that Connor McDavid gets one of them. So maybe you go there. Your Kings and your Avalanche play, I like that you're zigging when other people are zagging here. Typically, I would probably lean towards the Avalanche here, but both of these teams are playing very well over their last 10, 7 wins over their last 10, so I don't have a problem with that one. And the Canes at minus 146, a lot of juice to pay on the puck line. I might try to parlay that with something else just to get me into some better numbers, but I think you got a bunch of winners there.
Hopefully we go 4-0. Hopefully we have ourselves a good Thursday. Ken Barkley is
your third favorite Barkley.
That's yeah.
Oh, what about Gnarls Barkley, the singer?
Oh, good one.
Forget you and forget her too. Right?
Yes, that's true. That's a good. I haven't thought about Gnarls Barkley in a while. Gnarls.
I
right?
was rich.
It's a GNARLS.
Yeah, it's a silent G.
Want to tell everybody about the Bettorcast, the Academy Awards. Watch the Academy Awards with us this Sunday night and compete in our live Q&A contest on the Bettor Sports Network app. Join us for the Oscars edition of Bettorcast, Sunday at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Watch, play, and win prizes by answering questions about the Academy Awards and movie trivia while having fun chatting with movie fans in real time. It's Bettorcast, only on the Bettor Sports Network app. Download the app for free in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store.
Being that you and I are not Academy Awards guys.
Yeah.
Can you name a single movie that's up for an Academy Award?
Maverick, Top Gun. No?
Is it?
I think so.
What's the one with Brendan Fraser, The Whale?
I think that's also up for awards. Yeah.
And wasn't it? I think it was Adnan Virk. I think it was Adnan was saying that Brendan won't win it because he's been critical of the Academy or something like that.
See, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
Politics shouldn't come into play. Either you're the best. I have no idea.
I know we have a guest list set for tomorrow. We should see if we could sneak Adnan on tomorrow for
talk a little Academy Awards,
5 or 6 minutes just to get his takes.
That'd be awesome.
Ernie, let's see if we could sneak Adnan. I don't know what his availability is. I know he's helping out a little bit with the WBC coverage for MLB. Let's see if we could sneak him on for like 5 minutes.
Ken Barkley joins us next. You bet.
Your fourth favorite Barkley now.
No, he's more
Saquon, Charles, Gnarls.
No, Gnarls is not ahead of Ken.
Gnarls is not ahead of Ken Barkley?
No, Gnarls is not ahead of Ken. Saquon is because my 6-year-old would have had a fit if he left the Giants. Like we would have been in mourning for months.
Saquon, Charles, Ken, Gnarls, and then Matt Barkley really far behind.
Matt Barkley, I wouldn't even put him in the conversation.
Not even allowed there. No. I ran Barkley ahead of him. All right.
We'll chat with Ken. We'll do that next. Moose and Keith with you, Bettor Sports Network.
Talk about your picks and your fantasy teams on Bettor Sports Network.
The importance of checking out the site that you're playing on. Default rankings of these sites. A lot of times they don't get updated. I know from experience. I used to write default rankings for the NFBKC, the basketball version of the NFBC. I'd write these default rankings in June for the NBA, before the NBA draft, before free agency opened up. And guess what? I was never asked to write an update article or update the default rankings. This happens a lot. Maybe if there's something obvious, it gets updated. Aaron Judge, for some reason, hurts his back. Maybe they make that change. Just maybe. But you don't know that. And that's why it's just so important that you show up to your draft room or you do that pre-draft prep. We're all busy. We know we're about to devote a lot of time to our fantasy baseball drafts. Why not spend the extra 20 to 25 minutes to invest properly in your team, to go and see which of those players are way down default rankings? They're going to be different on all of these sites, and you're going to be looking at them and going, maybe their analysts think a certain player who shouldn't be in the top 100, who should be maybe even not even the top 200, will be in that top 100. You got to check that out. You got to know where you're playing, just like you got to know your format when you sign up for the league. It's just so crucial, and people just skip right over it. You think it's cool to show up to the draft room 3 minutes before the draft. Well, number one, it's not cool because the commissioner's trying to make sure it is organized, especially me, who runs auctions. You can't, it's one thing if someone doesn't show up for the snake draft, oh well, doesn't ruin it for everyone. Auctions, you can't have someone not show up. Auto bidding, auto auctioning, it ruins the sanctity of those drafts here, which is why I always recommend, hey, make it easy on your commissioner. Don't make them send those texts there. It's annoying. You shouldn't have to do that. Don't wait till the last minute and get in there about 20, 25 minutes before so you can just look up and down the entire default rankings list so you can make a queue out of that, Ron. And the reason I keep saying this is because people still show up 2-3 minutes before the draft, and that's it. In fact, in one of my auctions, people were asking me where certain players were, and I go, did you search their name? No, I just got in. Well, that's no excuse right there. That's your own fault. I mean, you're organized, so you're a hard person to ask here.
You're getting those questions. This is your preschool league, right? People don't know how to search player names.
People freak out. They don't think. That's the problem. Because they show up 2 minutes before the draft. That's why.
The Playbook with Fensty and Ronis, presented by FantasyAlarm.com. Weekdays at 5 Eastern on Bettor Sports Network. It's Moose and Keith with Mark Malusis and Keith Irizarry.
To all the ladies in the place with styling.
Look who's joining us now. Ken Barkley, co-host You Better You Bet, Nick Costos. You can check that out, BetQL Audio Network. All of Ken's writings on Substack as well. Just search the chalkboard. Ken, Christmas time is almost here because Selection Sunday is almost here. Good morning, brother. How are you?
Good morning. It's good to, what was the Super Bowl was the last time we talked, I think, something like that.
It was, yes, Super Bowl Sunday morning. How you doing, man?
Yeah, it was in Arizona. Had a great time, and yeah, just kind of a whirlwind since then. The NCAA tournament is my favorite sporting event by far. It's like the thing I look forward to the most. I love the NFL too, but this is like special basically, and this is kind of the appetizer. The next couple of days with all these conference tournaments going on, we're gonna learn some things, and we'll probably get tricked by a few teams that look really good in the next couple of days, and we'll have to figure out what to do. But yeah, just an awesome time of year. So happy to join you guys.
Ken, how have you changed the way you attack March Madness over the years now that, sports betting legalized in most states where you have a bracket or you can be betting games, or maybe you're just doing everything?
I think, well, I mean, if you're the true degenerate, then the answer is everything, right? I mean, that's just as much, or just not even everything, as much as possible.
Yes.
Right? Like that's what you would say.
The question is, what
basically.
am I not betting?
Right. And to be fair, there were a lot of us that were maybe betting on the games anyway, like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when before everything obviously got legalized. I used to go to Vegas every year for the first round of the tournament. It's become more and more and more popular every year. I'm going this year for work, and it's just like everything sold out everywhere the entire week, everywhere. So you can tell there's like a, kind of a furor about this. Honestly, people are just like locked into this event. How have I changed how I look at it? I'm like a huge dork. I'm really scientific with how I look at stuff. I try to always get smarter and try to learn more about how the tournament works. So if there's a way that I've changed, I used to watch guys I used to work at ESPN for like a decade. So it was my job to watch every game, basically. Like I would have TVs just walls of televisions, and I would watch every college basketball game. I could tell you a ton about every team, every player. Oh, well, on February 8th, they played this team and this happened and all that stuff. And I would bet off that. Like, I would fly to Vegas and subjectively, I would just be like, well, I like that team. I don't like that. I would just think about it in my head. And that's it. That's all everything I would do to bet. Now I'm like the exact opposite. I really don't watch a lot. I watch stuff that I'm interested in, but I don't really watch a lot. And instead, I kind of just rely on like my numbers. Here's like what the history of the tournament says. Here's who we get tricked by all the time, types of teams that are a certain way or a certain style. And I find that to be a lot more valuable. So I'm watching less, but I'm still kind of just as interested.
All right, Ken, with that and your modeling, because I know you're great at this, as wide open as the college landscape appears to be, when you look at teams based on your analytics that can win a national championship this year, how many teams do you think can win a national title?
It's a great question. I would have given you a shockingly small number even just a week ago, probably. But I think, I'll be honest, I think UCLA was by far the most likely team to win, by far the most likely team to win.
Clark injuries, killer.
And their third best player, Jalen Clark, who's incredibly impactful. He was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. He was sort of presented them with a high ceiling, where him and some of the freshmen, like there was a way they actually had another level to go to, and they were rating out almost as good as Houston, almost as good as Kansas, almost as good as all of these other teams. But I kind of had them pegged as like, this is the team. I mean, they check every box, and then he gets hurt, and he's not going to play in the tournament. And so now for me, it's kind of like, now what? So they were a team, obviously, and they still are. We don't know what this is going to look like, but we'll see. And they're still quite good, but they lose a really important player. Houston is going to be that team, like kind of like Gonzaga in the previous 5 to 10 years, play in a not very good conference. And because they don't play very good teams in conference, their metric profile is going to pop big time. They're going to look like the best team in the country. We don't know if that's true. With Gonzaga, it's never true, basically. So maybe with Houston, we don't know. They check every box. I'll give you a couple others that maybe people don't think about. Texas is a team that's actually incredibly interesting. They just do everything well. Now, they don't have the coach that they had to start the year, and he might be going to coach Mississippi State or Ole Miss or whatever at some point, Chris Beard. But like, they're incredibly balanced, and balance is what you want to look for. Good at everything, good at every part of the season, never bad. That's the team that wins every single year, even when we have a crazy winner. So Houston, UCLA, Texas, and I'll give you one more that really stands out. Kansas is kind of like a fringy team. They're quite good. UConn is going to be like the most interesting team for me in the tournament. 4 seed, look amazing on a sheet of paper. Their coach, Dan Hurley, concerns me greatly, though. Has made the NCAA tournament twice with UConn, and is responsible for 2 of the worst tournament losses I can imagine based on how they were supposed to play in the game. Got crushed by Maryland a couple of years ago in a 7-10, got upset in a 5-12 in the first round last year by a bad 12. Like, you're going to bet that guy to win the title? Like, that's tough too. So those 5, though, from like a numbers standpoint would stand out to me.
Futures wise, so you mentioned those 5. Now, do you get in on them before the tournament, before you see their road in the bracket, or do you wait till the bracket comes out and then start popping out futures?
So I think a lot of people like to bet futures throughout the season. Like, it's fun to kind of try to pick a team and follow them through this whole journey and see where they end up. All other sports, I'm betting early in the year. NFL, only early in the year, really, like try before we really know kind of what's going on. So, Eagles or Dallas or these teams that we didn't think were going to be really good. College football, early in the year. NBA, pretty early in the year. Sometimes, kind of depends on the season. This is the only sport where I don't bet anything until the bracket comes out because it's too random. Like, you're trying to get ahead of something usually, right? Oh, well, nobody knows this team is good yet, but I do. And once everyone realizes that the price will drop, okay, that's great. Except what happens when the committee puts them against this amazing other team by accident, basically, in the turn? Like, you don't gain anything when that happens. You have to wait. I mean, I would not have bet anything on Kansas into the tournament last year. And then you look at the region. Who else am I going to bet on to win? I mean, everything opened up completely for them because of the committee. Like, they have too much power over the situation to bet beforehand. So I'm a wait the whole way. So I mean, I have teams I like. I have teams earmarked. UCLA was one. So I know kind of what I want to do. I just need to know how the pieces fit together.
Ken, who are the fraud teams Like I know you in those teams, I couldn't. You didn't mention
a lot.
Alabama.
I like a lot of them.
Sure. But who are the teams that are a lot of people are going to be picking in their brackets to go on deep runs? I know it depends on where they fall, where they seed, and everything can look a little bit different. Which teams are been in the top 15, top 20 all season long that you're really skeptical of?
There are quite a few this year, more than usual. I think that's one of the things that'll make this tournament unique. We have really good mid-majors who have won to get into the tournament. Sometimes we like those teams and they lose their final or they don't make it. And it's like, I really wanted to bet on that team in the tournament and they're just never even going to get that chance. That stinks. But all of them won. Drake won, Charleston won, Oral Roberts won. They're all in. Like they're all in. They could all win multiple games in the tournament, which is pretty crazy. And the flip side of that is the 3s and 4s are as bad as I can remember. They're all vulnerable. You could see 5 upsets in the first round. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. Virginia, I think people think Virginia is not very good, so they probably don't count for this answer. They won't be very much of a favorite. They'll play in a 4-13. They might be like a 3-point favorite over some 13s or a 4-point favorite over some 13s in the first round. Just like don't even get any credit, don't deserve any credit with how they played this year. A couple teams that people will like that I don't. I really don't like Baylor, and that's a team a lot of people like in the tournament. So we tend to get seduced a lot as fans, just people who watch games, by teams that are all offense, sexy offense, shoot a ton of threes, star players in a lot of situations. But Baylor is a team, they got that. That's why everybody likes them. Except that on the defensive end, it's like incredibly imbalanced. They're great at offense, atrocious at defense. Teams that fit that profile have a nasty history in the NCAA. They lose early to teams you don't expect. It happens all the time. Iowa losing to Richmond in the 5-12 was a perfect example last year of kind of an all-offense team. Purdue losing to St. Peter's in the Sweet 16 last year. Purdue was a team like that. No defense. This year's team's different. But last year, like those are some examples. Like people fall in love with those teams. They don't go far. So Baylor was definitely a team like that. Gonzaga is a team like that. Miami is a team like that made a deep run last year. Like those are 3, could easily have them going out, if not in the first round, in the second round.
Who are some, you mentioned like Charleston, you mentioned Drake, like some of those teams. Who are some of those either mid-major teams or non-top 25 teams that you have earmarked that if they get the right draw, you feel confident can make a little run?
I think Drake is really, really interesting. And I think of the teams that have made it, those 3 that I mentioned, they're definitely the most balanced. So they can withstand a tougher draw and it's okay. Like I would bet them against a lot of 5s. St. Mary's probably not, but basically any other 5 that you're going to put in there. San Diego State, Miami, Kentucky would be really interesting if they won and got up to that 5 line because they're Kentucky. That would be kind of fun. So Drake's very interesting. Oral Roberts against the right team is going to be like a play on for sure. Charleston, I don't know. Like people are going to really like them and that's nice. But like there's a lot of teams that I don't think they can kind of hang with and it's going to be really matchup specific and they're going to need a pretty bad 5 to play on. And I'll give you one other one that was not in that group that has won already and clinched their spot. Furman is actually like quite an interesting team. So they're going to be about a 13 or a 14 seed, probably a 14. There are a couple cross matches they can get where you go, so Furman's a team that scores like crazy. I think they're second in the country in offense. If they drew like Tennessee, a team that can't score at all, a team that is missing their point guard, obviously Ziegler for the rest of the season, and it'd be a big number too. I mean, Tennessee 12, Tennessee 14 would be the point spread in that. I mean, that's where you kind of go, all right, a team that can score a ton against that team, like that's where you got to know the matchup, obviously. But a little further down, Furman would kind of be another team to earmark.
Before we get into, and it starts at noon and just runs all day and night.
Yes.
I mean, it's just fantastic. Before we get into what you like today, Ken, I want to ask you about one other team. What about Alabama? What's your take on the Tide going into the tournament?
I wish I had something really, really, really certain to say, but then I think you would know I was full of it, right? Because like, how could we know?
Right.
How could we know? I mean, all of the stuff comes out with Brandon Miller, the most recent kind of not accusations, but just like more information about what happened. And from that point until now, they've played badly. They haven't been very good. They played 5 games. They lost to Texas A&M. They had to go to overtime twice against bad teams. And this was a team that was beating everybody by 50 points going into that series of games. Is that because of the off the court stuff? Is it just randomness and they just played some close games and maybe they'll be fine when we get to Nashville? The game starts soon. I just don't know. If they're back to what they were, their kind of baseline level of play.
Say they go and win the SEC tournament.
Yeah, if they go and win the SEC tournament, then their odds are going to be very, very low again because everyone will be like, "Oh, well, I guess they're okay." It can go either way for me. I mean, it's an off the court thing, so it's tough to give a really good answer. I will say, here's what I'll say: before any of this happened, when I watched Alabama play, I thought they had the chance with Miller to have kind of a Carmelo Anthony Syracuse like type of run in the tournament where it's very rare that like a freshman player will lead a team and like really lead them through 6 wins in the tournament. It just doesn't happen very often. It's like Anthony Davis, Carmelo Anthony, and like all of the Duke players collectively when they did it one time. And that's it. I think he has that. I think that's actually how good he is at basketball. We can kind of leave the other stuff aside. So that's the ceiling. There's a floor that's pretty low. I don't know which one we're going to get, but they're in play for sure.
Ken, obviously a bunch of games today. So before we start pinpointing a few of them, what's the game that you're most looking forward to today?
I'll tell you, the set of games I think could be really interesting. I know everyone's on the Big 12 because those games are just crazy, right? It's like all the teams are going to make the tournament. They're all really good. So I understand there's a lot of attention on those games. I think the Big East games have the potential to be pretty electric also. I do like some of the dogs in a couple of those games. I don't think the difference between Providence and UConn is this big. Like on paper, they're probably separated by 7 points. In Ken Palm, they're probably separated by 7 points. The fan bases know each other extremely well. The schools are extremely close. We're playing on a neutral and the spread is 7. And UConn in these tournaments with Hurley as the coach, they do not play well. They get eliminated early all the time. Providence likes to play close games against everybody. Like, cool, UConn can win. 7 is a massive number. And then I'm also going to, and this is very square, and I think a lot of people are going to do this too, I'm going to play on Villanova. I'm going to do, if they win again, I'm going to play on them again tomorrow. And if they win again, I'm going to play on them tomorrow. Because when it went great last night, when they won by 900 points, that's when it went pretty well. So everyone's on this. I totally understand. Justin Moore comes back from injury. They're playing way better. They're a play on team. Everybody gets that. I don't care. I just don't care. They're a 5-point dog to Creighton. Creighton's awesome. I'll probably pick them to go to the Final Four maybe at some point. But just the Big East dogs I think are all pretty interesting today.
All right, I want to ask you about another dog. How about Pitt against Duke and the Panthers getting 6 in Greensboro? Do you think Duke beats them by daylight, or could you make an argument for the Panthers?
Well, the betting market certainly is starting to move in that direction. 2 points of steam from open, basically all on Duke in the game, and not because of injury, just like organic interest in Duke in the tournament. It's tough with Shire. First year. What is this? Like, is this a guy that we're going to want to play on in these situations, or is this going to flop? I mean, really, it's not like Brandon Miller in Alabama, but there's that uncertainty in both situations where you're just not really sure. At this number, like it's something like 6, I would not play on Duke. I think they're very likely to win. Their ceiling is to win the tournament easily because the ACC is so bad. But in the first game, could see it going either way. They played a very close game against Pitt earlier this year. Like, probably not very interested.
Let's stay in that tournament. What about Carolina tonight? What version of North Carolina do we get, who have been one of the great disappointments of college basketball this season?
Well, it's funny. You guys might actually know more about this than me. We're going to do like the classic live on the air, like what's going on with a player. So I don't know if you watched the game last night. Obviously, Armando Bacot, who is like North Carolina's best player, had a really, really bad ankle turn in the game last night. Now, they won going away by like 30 points. But it was in the second half. He left the game. Yeah, I mean, everything I see is just like potentially dodged a bullet, probably going to be okay. Now, you've seen the market move the opposite, which is going to happen whenever you have an injury. I like Carolina against Virginia in the matchup a lot. Now, maybe this is a situation where you watch the first 5 minutes and like, does he look okay? Is this going to be a thing or not? And once you kind of get coast is clear, and that could even take till the first TV timeout, maybe it's a live betting game in that situation. Right. College basketball injuries, you just get no information on. You just never know. That might be a situation where you have to make sure he's good before you kind of fire.
When you look at the Big 12, and you mentioned the fact that the Big 12, like everyone's going to be in the tournament, any fear of these teams beating up on each other too much throughout the year, and then maybe they fall short in the tournament?
Well, it's funny because sometimes that'll happen, right? There was a year where the Big 10 was by far the best conference and all of them flopped out of the tournament. to be fair, I mean, Kansas won last year in the Big Ten, and the Big 12 was really good. So less worried about that. But here's and I'll kind of change the answer or the question a little bit. Be really careful about a team that's going to look awesome for the next 3 days. Historically, the teams that get on these runs, and when they're to Tennessee last year was a really good example. By most measurements, they were the best team in the country the last 3 weeks of the season. They won the SEC tournament and obviously lost in the second round to Michigan in the NCAA tournament. There's a long history of that happening, of us kind of really getting enamored with a team. This is the tournament that could produce a team like that. What happens if K-State wins the tournament? What happens if TCU wins the tournament? What happens if Baylor wins the tournament? You could play it out with any team because they're all so good. It's almost like fade whoever the team is that wins the Big 12 tournament in the NCAA tournament, because and there's going to be a market effect for that. Like the market's going to like that team. They're going to be favored by more in the NCAA tournament because they played so well. That's almost how I'm looking at it. Like, yeah, they'll beat each other up and there's a physical component and, like these are tough games. It's almost like whoever survives is probably going to be overrated. And the history of the tournament kind of tells us that.
All right, Ken, how about TCU and K-State remain in the Big 12 later on tonight, 9:30 tip?
I think I'm going to be on Kansas State in the game. Now, I'm not alone, and there's some player news here too. Eddie Lampkin, who's TCU's big, like people remember him from the tournament last year, just the giant human who was like very good at basketball. And that the Arizona game, that was the second round game last year, where that was prime time. That game was awesome. He was a big part of that. He left the program, and there might be some other stuff kind of going on. He made kind of in and out of the lineup all year. He will not play in this game. I think by all accounts, TCU's had a bunch of guys kind of hurt in and out of the lineup. I do like Kansas State in this game, like a pretty good amount. They're playing the best of basically any team in the conference right now. And in conference tournaments, that does matter. The momentum's like kind of a real thing. Saw that with Villanova last night. Honestly, I think we're going to see it in the Big Ten with a couple teams that played pretty well. So I do like K-State a little in the game. The market's moved hard on the over. I kind of agree with that, but would rather just play K-State.
Ken, two more before we let you go. Number one, favorite play of the day today of the smorgasbord is what?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's one of the Big East dogs for sure. I think it's Providence. It's a classic situation. You guys know this. Like, you know why the number is what it is. It's not that the number's wrong. It's not that it needs to be something different. Like, I'm sure that's like the mathematical difference between the teams. Also, I love the underdog. It's also 7's too many in the actual playing of the basketball game. Like, that's actually just the dynamics of how those teams fit together. I would have to say Providence.
Now, Sunday night, after Selection Sunday, will you be betting the Academy Awards?
I have not seen a single movie. You know this, Moose. I have two small kids.
I know.
5.5-year-old and a 4-year-old.
I know, but you don't watch college basketball either, and you're betting.
Can I bet on Super Mario Brothers? Can I bet on that remake that's going to come out in a couple months? Because that's all they want to see. That's all they're really interested in. I tell you what, if I hear anything, because like people bet, obviously people bet this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Limits are low, but like if you have information in any sport, in any market, if you have information the market doesn't have, fire away. That's the time to make all the bets. Obviously, NFL draft will be that too, with people who know versus people who don't. If I hear anything, I'll let you know. But
you are not.
I'm locked in on iPad kid shows and PJ Masks and all kinds of stuff. So.
Oh, I love PJ Masks. That's a very entertaining show.
How old are your kids?
5.5, and my son just turned 4.
Yeah, you're in it. Yeah.
Oh, big time. Yeah. They're about to pick up my son from daycare in about 45 minutes, and we'll do it all over again tomorrow. We'll just do the whole thing all over again.
And wait till they start playing sports.
I know, right? We got hockey players too, right?
Yeah, 3 hockey players. Yes, tryouts are waiting for teams up in.
And
Lake
the Rangers,
Placid.
Moose. Are you Rangers or Islanders? I always forget.
I'm a
Rangers.
Yeah, Rangers. Patrick Kane.
Tarasenko. Patrick Kane.
Yeah. Well, you have a bone to pick with Tarasenko, but anyway.
I do have a bone to pick for Tarasenko. You want to hear a quick?
Still rather be on the team. Yeah.
Well, no. It's not that. Keith is bringing up the fact that my son Gregory tried out for a team and got beat out by Tarasenko's son.
Really?
Yes.
Like Vladimir Tarasenko Jr. Is that his name?
I don't know what his son's name is, but yes. I don't know what his son's name is.
It's going to let you pick the bone a little bit more.
Vladimir Tarasenko is no longer one of my favorite Rangers.
We'll see. In the playoffs, we'll see. Yeah.
I know, and it's funny, and I said to Moose, I'm like, interesting that someone in that area had a bigger name than Malusis. It's
right.
It took.
Yeah, you got shoved out of the way. They brought out.
You see that?
This guy. Yeah.
Like, exactly right. I feel like I'm home with my wife.
Vladimir Tarasenko also took his table at a restaurant too, so he's really out on.
He actually walked in
Tarasenko.
and just went like this, and they took Malusis's table and gave it to him.
He also bought out a movie theater when I wanted to go see a movie with my kids.
Yeah, wiped him out.
What a
Wiped him
jerk,
out.
man!
Yeah,
I hope they trade him back.
And enjoy PJ Masks. Enjoy some college basketball today. All right,
Thanks,
we
guys.
appreciate
Appreciate
the
it.
time.
Good having you, Ken.
You better, you bet. He's fantastic. I love Ken.
He bought out a movie theater.
I know.
God, I want that story to be true.
That's not true. It's not a true.
Oh
but
my
it's
God, I wish that was true.
Like, wait a second. No, someone just bought that theater out.
Oh, really? Who is it? Vladimir Tarasenko. God, crikeys or something. I don't know.
Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers of Lunch Money go back in time and relive the glory of Tinseltown's past. They are joined by some BSN teammates, and they give their top 5 in some of their favorite movie genres. Kyle and Ray, a 12 p.m. special show today. Hollywood highlights.
So I know you have to run to PIX right away after this. I am about to. I'm excited about my afternoon.
What do
so
you got?
a lot of times in the afternoons, I'm home alone until whatever 3:30 the kids get home, right?
Yeah.
So I'll get prep work done for other shows. I will cook dinner. I'll do laundry. I'll work out, whatever, right?
Yeah.
How about today? So Jody ended up having to take a day off from school because she went into Alex's class and she did this whole reading thing or whatever in the 3rd grade class. It's over. So I think we're going to go out and get some poke bowls for lunch.
That's great.
Yeah, I know. And she has a boatload of work to do, so it's not going to be like a long afternoon. Like she has stuff that she has to get done for school. But when she said, she's like, it finished earlier than I thought. I'm like, poke bowl? She's like, that's what I was thinking.
I love you go tuna, right?
I go spicy, spicy tuna, and the place I give, go to the, how like you can mix in all the veggies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
One of the mix-ins is crab.
Oh, that's great.
So I get the tuna, the crab, some edamame in there. I get pineapple in there, corn in there. I usually go over rice. I like the rice for this.
Yeah, poke bowls are great.
And then I get that spicy sweet sauce.
Yeah, the orangey kind of look. Or
whatever it is. Yeah.
It's delicious. Whatever it is.
So,
I had drunken noodles last night. Spicy drunken noodles.
Oh, nice.
Oh, so good.
So while I'm eating, listen, when you're at PIX and you're hungry and you grabbed a quick protein bar on the drive, just think I'll be eating a poke bowl. Okay? Just, want me to send you a picture of my poke bowl?
Enjoy your seafood.
I'll send you a picture.
No, I don't need a picture. Thank you. Enjoy all the college hoops.